Alrighty, boys, back to work. Getting a really early start today to make up for yesterday. Yesterday happened to be the first day in like 50 plus days that I didn't even click on the camera one single time. I had so much other random things to take care of. But today we're gonna make some insane progress on the yellow Evo 8. This thing's gonna be rolling around by the end of the day with wheels and tires, brakes on it, and provided that we can, be quick with it, maybe like get the AC stuff situated, all those lines refurbished on the car, and AC condenser, maybe get the radiator in. Like, who knows how far we can actually get. But let's start off with some brakes. So here I have all the pads and rotors. Let me grab all the calipers that we need to refurb. I would definitely say these things have seen better days. So here's what they look like before. Here's what they look like before. Alrighty, let's start off with removing all of the pads, pins, and the pad separator plate thingamabobber. I should know what that's called, but I don't. So I just grab a little punch. You can use a small screwdriver as well. Just go ahead and pop these pins out. Okay. Alrighty. Pads are quite shot. After all of the pads are removed, what I do to get the majority of the pistons out is I take a little piece of rubber hose. It's going to kind of act as a seal, and we can put it down into this hole here where the brake line bolts on. Apply a bit of air. And it'll pop at minimum one of the pistons out and pull, as you can see that pulled that piston out just a touch as well. So that method works pretty good for getting pistons out. The rear caliper bolts are a 6mm Allen, and the fronts I want to say are a 10. Yes, fronts are a 10. 4 bolts holding each caliper together. When all those 4 bolts are out, the caliper comes apart. Now this is very important, my friends. In the rear on Evos and a lot of other models with Brembos, there's this O-ring. Now it's a special type of O-ring that I have not been able to find anywhere. So don't lose it, or cut it, or tear it. With the caliper apart, we can come in with a flathead and pop out the dust seal. This one's a little big. There we go. Dust seal comes out. And being that we already blew compressed air into this thing, this piston should just slide out like that. And down inside the caliper is the fluid seal. Only other thing to remove before we can start stripping these things is the bleeder. Calipers are stripped down to the bare bones. Now we need to get all this powder coat off of here. Or paint. I'm pretty sure factory it's paint. I doubt they'd be doing powder coat stuff stock, especially back in 03. Powder coat probably wasn't even around in 03. Right out of the stripper tank, these things are pretty corroded, but thankfully it all blasts off super easy. Maybe about 5 minutes per caliper, and these things are ready to be powder coated. Actually, that's a lie. The one thing that does take forever, if you guys remember when we did the brake lines on the firewall, it had the same green coating on it. I don't know what kind of coating this is, man, but it takes so long to blast off compared to anything else. Some sort of rubberized coating. Everything's all blasted up, ready to party. I'm always trying to get a little bit quicker with these projects and restorations. So instead of spending a ton of hours on masking where the pistons go, just plug them off. So much quicker. If you're wondering what size I bought, the green ones are... You kidding me? They don't even say. Red ones are 1.469 inch. Green ones probably 1.75. Okay, that's all done. Now to make it go quick as well, the best way to go about this is just to bolt the caliper back together. That's going to allow you to powder coat the head of the bolt. It's going to allow you to not have to mask the entire surface of the caliper. It's just the right move to make. The only part that actually needs to be taped is where the banjo bolt goes. So right here, it's a sealing surface with a crush washer. And I've noticed in the past, if that is powdered, it usually leaks. So then you have to go back through, grind off the powder, make it flat again. It's just easier to mask it off and be done. So this here is what a fully masked caliper looks like. Bolt holes, bleeder screws, banjo, brake line, pistons, ready. Into the oven they go for their gas out phase. Oh, it's so freaking warm. 500 degrees in there right now. Oof. Burns your eyebrows. So as you guys know, my last powder coat gun was going out. So I did a bunch of research and I picked up a new gun. Okay. Based off of my research that I did do, this gun is the best bang for the buck. What I ended up purchasing is the same exact gun. Now let me explain. These are only about 300, maybe 350 bucks. I'm not an avid powder coater enough to justify spending that $2,000 or whatever a really baller one costs. Now in the future, that would make sense. But for the weekend warrior that I am with powder coating, for the most part, now of course the last couple of weeks have been a lot of powder coating on this project, but in general, I'm a weekend warrior. So the last one lasted me 4 years maybe. So it probably costed around, let's say 80 bucks a year to use. And yeah, it was just, it was tough to find anything that beats the good old Redline Easy 50. I will link one down below. You can pick them up on eBay. No, this is not sponsored. It's just it's a product that I think is good. Good enough for the weekend warrior. So I'll link it down below. And our beautiful, magnificent color of choice. You already know if you've been following the build. If you haven't been, color is called Forged Charcoal from Prismatic Powders. Man, oh man, I'm excited for this one. It's not gonna be super poppy, of course. Just a nice, subtle look on the calipers. Just got a call from the Mitsubishi dealer and all of our random parts and pieces that we've been missing are in. Valve housing bolts, that one transfer case seal. What else did we have to order up? A couple other little things. So let's get these calipers in the oven, and as they bake out, which is usually in the big oven, it takes like an hour, maybe longer, for them to reach temp. We can hop in a cool car and go pick up parts. The part shelf is dying down with parts though, that's nice. AKA the top of the oven and the top of the Evo 4. Instead of calling this thing the world's nicest Evo, I'm about to start calling it the world's most expensive Evo. Carpet and a couple bolts and whatnot, 300 bucks. Okay, calipers are complete in this color, it's perfect. It is absolutely going to be perfect on this build. So that's how it looks. Forged charcoal, it really flattens out as soon as you bake it. And I'm glad it does, because if it was like a glossy gray, glossy charcoal, I don't think it would look all that good. So let's run through assembly on one of these calipers real quick. So the first thing I'm going to reinstall are these little brake pad sliders, I guess you would call it. They bolt on right here. A lot of times I am a little lazy and I just don't even take these off, powder coat it with these on. But the problem is powder coat is a fairly thick coating, and when you build it up, especially on both sides, the brake pad can't slide very good like it should be able to. So it's best to pull them out and just reinstall when we're ready to go. These bolts I am going to be Loctiting. Of course, you do not want these falling off. Otherwise, it might bind up in your brake pads and you ain't got no brakes. Now, I don't know the torque spec on these Torx. What is this, a T27? Yeah, T27 Torx bolts, but if you just grab a ratchet and yeah, crank her down real good, especially with the Loctite on there, you'll be all right. When I removed them, they're not really all that tight anyway. If I had to guess, it'd probably be like 12 foot-pounds maybe. Okay, so that's how rear should look with the pad sliders on. Now with that all sorted out, open up your seals, grab one of the fluid seals, and toss her down in the caliper. Now here's what I think the best method of installing the pistons is. Grab a dust seal, get it on the piston first. So it kind of just wraps around, clips in like that. Okay. Now we're going to be using just a touch of brake fluid for lube to slide that piston down into the seal. Pistons on brake calipers aren't really a wear item, not with lower mileage at least. If you're getting way up there on miles, maybe at that point, but I've never seen one that needs to be replaced from traditional wear and tear. The seals, of course, replace those, but the pistons, it ain't like an engine where they see a ton of wear. Okay. So the seal's all lubed up. Now kind of twist and push in. And the piston will slide past that seal. As soon as the piston is all the way down in the cylinder, just take something with a flat edge and press that dust seal in. And this one side is complete. Alrighty, both halves of this rear caliper are complete. Now remember, in the rears we do have this little fluid seal that goes right here. In the fronts you have the crossover line. Rears is just internal with that seal. Do not forget or you will have leaks. Now the bolts that hold the cases or the halves together, I like to just crank those down while it's on the car. I've yet to find the actual torque spec for these 4 bolts, but I've never had a problem just getting the caliper mounted up on the car, bolted to the knuckle, and then go through with a ratchet and cinch those guys down. Never had any sort of issue doing it that way, so that's what I would recommend. Caliper number 1 is complete. Look at that. All of the calipers are finished up. Let's go ahead and apply our decals real quick. These things turned out beautiful. Decided to go with a white decal. Black would have been cool. It would have been a little too subtle though, you could say. The white is definitely nice. Everything with all of the brakes is finished up. Calipers are fully assembled, ready to go. So let's start off with tossing on some rotors. It's gonna go rotors, calipers, pads, brake lines, and then wheels and tires. Brand new set of rotors. I ordered these a long time ago, and you know, if I could go back in time and knew this build was going to turn into what it is now, I would have done some fancy like drilled and slotted rotors. But they're a nice set of rotors. They're just blanks, of course, and they will treat us mighty fine. New rotors always have some oil on them, so of course you got to wipe that off, otherwise they'll get into your pads and your brakes ain't gonna work all that well. Okay. I do think the gray or the charcoal was the right move. New pads, I picked up some ceramic silicone brake component lubrication. They say to put it on the backside of the pad where it meets the pistons. And on these pins themselves. Touch a lube there. Slide one of them through. Tap the pins through, and we have one complete caliper. That looks very nice. Alrighty, last thing for the calipers is the bleeders. Now, instead of mounting these crusty old things that I very clearly and deliberately forgot to have zinc plated, I figured this would be a great opportunity to show you guys a new JE Customs product. Titanium bleeders for your Brembos. At first I was a little bit unsure on how the cap that they supply would be secured, but now it makes sense. So let's grab a bleeder screw first. These things are freaking baller. That is baller. Go ahead, snug her up a bit for now. Of course, this thing is not going to be seeing any sort of fluids for a while. So now it's time for the cap. Let's put it on like that. And then included is these tiny, tiny little set screws, which is what holds that cap in place. As soon as that screws in, she ain't going anywhere. That's beautiful. That's a very nice icing on the cake, you could say. Well, you guys have spoken, and I too have finally made up my mind of what wheels we are going to be running on this car. The wheel of choice is, dun dun dun, a Volk, or is it Rays? Diamond Gunmetal ZE40. Now I have a couple different sizes of tires, and I'm going to start with the 245/35. I think that's going to be the best suited for this car and the stance, I guess you could say, that I want. I'm trying to set this thing up like an old Evo I had, the black one, the OG one. That car ran 18 by 9.5 plus 22, which is what these are, on a 245/35/18, and it was absolutely amazing. So that's the size I'm going to start off with. I do have a 255 here as well. I don't think I have a 265. And then these heifers that are currently mounted up on here, these are a 275/35. In my opinion, for the look I want on this car, it's a little bit meaty. A little bit meaty. 245 is getting a little bit narrow as well, but I just want this thing to look amazing, and I think this is going to be the ticket. Dismounting expensive wheels is the worst. I have yet to figure out how to use the plastic head for dismounts. Mounting's easy, you just slap the plastic head on, kind of does it for you, but dismounting, man, with this metal head, I've definitely messed up my fair share of spendy wheels. I've dismounted 3 of these so far and everything's been good. So we'll see. I should have got a tire machine that has that additional head that comes out and does what I'm doing over here for you. It'll just push the tire down below the bead. That would be super nice. Maybe one day we ought to upgrade. because that would be a huge help. Okay. Baller tires definitely mount and dismount easier than the cheap China Boy tires. These are a good old set of Nitto G2s. What a quality tire. Okay. Nice and simple. Now with no tires, let's see what we think. Definitely the right call. It was either these or the Mag Blue TEs. I think we're making the right call. We could always switch it out in the future, but I don't think we're gonna need to. One thing I definitely do need to do is get these red stems off of here. I do like the fact that they're metal, but the red is a little bit clashy with there being no other red on the entire car. As long as you keep the tire underneath the, like in the little valley, they mount easy. Nice. Definitely quite a bit thinner, but this is what we need. Go. Sheesh. So if dismounting expensive wheels is the worst thing, the second worst thing is very carefully going through and pulling off all of the wheel weights from the previous owner. Never a good time. That's a lot of weights as well. So what I like to do is grab some sort of plastic pry tool. If you use metal, most likely gonna mess up the wheel. Pop these things off. The weights themselves come off very, very easy, but it's all the glue that you gotta deal with after. And of course you can't just leave it on because that'd be janky. Now the best way I've noticed and found to get that tape glue gunk off of here is with some lacquer thinner. Now don't use this if you have some janky coated wheels. But if it's a factory coating or like some sort of high quality coating, powder coat, whatnot, this is gonna be just fine. You wanna know a pet peeve of mine? Silver wheel weights. I feel like on any color of wheel, doesn't matter what it is, black wheel weights look better. A little bit worried these things are not going to balance out very well. There was so much weight on every single one of these wheels. So we'll see what happens. That is the downside of buying used wheels. 0 ounce on the inner, 1/2 ounce on the outer. That's mint. Wheel number 1 going on. Oh yeah, this is gonna look insane. Definitely an interesting look with the calipers and the wheels being a very, very similar color. I wouldn't quite say paint matched, but very similar. Now, of course, it's a little bit hard to tell how cool it's gonna look without the fender on, but what do you guys think? Comment below. Did we make the right call with this setup? I think I like it. I know I like it. I think it looks badass. The yellow is such a loud color that I feel like I can't really do any other colors on this car. White wheels may have looked decent, maybe white calipers with a darker wheel, but I think this is gonna be the cleanest look for what this car is being built to be. OEM plus. Real talk, I am certainly feeling the weight of this project on my freaking shoulders right now. Oh man, I wonder how, I'm gonna go look. What episode are we on? We're on like episode 40 or something. This is episode 46. And I've been doing dailies every single day. 46 days straight on this one car. That's not actually not bad. Huh. We'll probably be around episode 60, 65 by the time this thing is considered 100% completed, I would assume. But yeah, it's right now it's very difficult to keep trucking on. I'm certainly not motivated to be working on this thing right now. And I mentioned a couple videos ago, there is another car I do need to spend a couple days on. One of these good old Subarus I got laying around the shop, I need to spend a couple days on, get up and going, and yeah, kind of get that out of the way. So I think that's going to be a nice little mental break, little reset from the Evo 8 project. I do love this car, obviously. It's turning out really, really sick, but this many days straight without taking a single day off of at least tinkering on it in some sort of way definitely does get tiring and kind of wears you out a little bit, but it is what it is. Maybe tomorrow will be a different day. Oof, almost cribbed a wheel. Back in the day, Brembos used to be at least a 2-day thing for me with fully stripping them down. I didn't have a stripper tank back then. I'd have to run them all the way to my guy in Post Falls to get them stripped. If you are from Spokane, you know where that's at. Bring them to Post Falls, get them stripped, come back home, sandblast them. The sandblaster back then wasn't quite as quality of a unit. It was like a 2-day thing for the whole process. So the fact that we were able to knock out all the brakes, get wheels and tires mounted, balanced on the car, pretty solid day. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you boys tomorrow.